Welcome back. I'm Adrienne, your expert on all things custom home building and luxury. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Tell a friend how much fun we have on the Fraser Homes channel. So, we are revisiting a very popular training that I have hosted at a number of different conferences, specifically at the Home Builders Association Lunch and Learn. We talked about downtime. And if you all will remember, we learned that downtime is the enemy, the absolute enemy of any process. So that is not just the construction process, that is not specific to manufacturing where these concepts have been derived. This is the enemy of any process, and we need to understand what that acronym is and why we try to avoid it at all costs. So Fraser Homes, we are a general contractor. As a general contractor, it is our responsibility to coordinate the means and methods of an end product, which is your beautiful luxury home, through the coordinated effort of labor, materials, supply men, etc. And so, for those reasons, we have to have a bona fide process that we follow, a proven process that we follow that allows us to get you your end product or your construction on time and on budget. So, what does downtime mean? It is an acronym. It would be great if you had a piece of paper. You can write it down because it's very important that you remember. So, D stands for defects. So, defects in any process obviously means that there is going to be a cost associated because you are either reworking that particular component to try to address the defect, or the defect is coming back as a recall. You all know that we've had car manufacturers that are recalling because there is some type of defect. So defect is the first in the downtime acronym, and it is something that we want to avoid. Defects do present in any aspect, particularly with construction, but we want to mitigate. As your general contractor, it is our responsibility to mitigate the risk. So O is overproduction. That means that we are overproducing whatever material. So, in the instance when we're talking about cars, if I'm overproducing a particular component, transmissions. So, shout out to Ford and Sharonville. We love the Ford plant in Sharonville. They produce transmissions. And so, if they are overproducing transmissions, you don't have that component to go in cars. Now, what you have is a ton of inventory that is sitting on your shelves that you can't do anything with. Overproduction can also be in a service industry where we are spending a lot of time, extra time, reworking, rewriting a particular process. So, this is the reason why you hear me say it's very important that we understand your scope. We're developing specifications because we don't want overproduction. W. W is a major problem, and you will find it in all industries, and it is waiting. So, how many times have you heard, I am waiting to hear back? I am waiting in line. You are waiting on hold. Waiting is an aggravation and a nuisance to the person who is on the receiving end. But in the business community, every minute that we are waiting, that means that we are not producing, we are not getting our product down the assembly line. While it might not be a traditional assembly line, there is an assembly line component to each process. And if we are waiting, that means that the process is halted, and so we are losing time and dollars. So we've got through DOW. Now we are going to N. N in the acronym is non-utilized talent. So that means you can have people who are on your team and we are not properly utilizing their talent. So you've heard many times you have to have the right people on the right seats on the bus. Well, if you have your accounting professional project managing one of our Fraser Homes projects, in this instance, that would be inappropriate use of talent. So you need to have your talent in the right space and you need to utilize your talent. So, oftentimes, when you are doing a case study, you're evaluating your process capability. We will do a episode on what the process capability is and analyzing the process capability. You want to make sure that you don't have huge disparities in terms of workload. So that means if one operator has a whole bunch of X and the other operator has very little because of how the process is managed, we are not properly utilizing our talent. And so that is ultimately waste. The bottom line when we're thinking about the downtime acronym is we want to avoid waste. T is transportation. Okay, so transportation is where we are freighting materials that are it's inappropriate. So, for example, if we have plumbing fixtures that are going to be delivered to one of our homes, and we have this big box truck to deliver the one plumbing fixture, well, that in and of itself is a waste. You don't want to have one plumbing fixture in this instance just for this big box truck. So transportation, it also can show up in how we are moving materials around. So on our projects, if the trim carpenter is in the garage cutting and making sure that he is aligning the trim, and he has to go to the garage and then back to the second floor and then back to the garage, that transportation, that going back and forth is not helpful to the overall process and it is a waste. So I is inventory. We talked about how overproduction creates inventory, but consider as a builder, remember I've said in times past that we do not hold a lot of inventory. So in one of the episodes where I said we may need to consider a tear down because we don't have lots, it's because Fraser Homes does not hold a ton of lots. Now, we do have some inventory, but we don't hold a ton of inventory because we want to make sure that our dollars and our time is not spent on holding inventory. Our subject matter expertise is delivering a very luxurious custom home to our end user. And so having too much inventory, that is in any industry. If you have products that are sitting on the shelf and they're not moving, if you are a jewelry store and you have products sitting on the shelf and it's not selling, it negatively impacts your ability to run your operation and it is a downtime effect. So M is mistakes or motion. So either one, the one that I prefer to talk about is mistakes. Mistakes are where we are chronically overlooking what we need in terms of inputs, throughputs, and outputs in the process. This is, again, I mentioned this in another episode. This is an operational best practice. If you do not know what your inputs, your throughputs, and your outputs are, then you probably are not in business. You may be just making transactions. But actually, being a business leader and a business owner, you understand your operation and you understand the intersection of each one of your processes and how it impacts the other. So, mistakes. The final one is E, which is errors. Errors and mistakes are one and the same, but I also like to talk about extra processing. So, do we have to revisit a process 25 times? We're talking about the same things. You can see that in the corporate world where you'll go to a meeting, and in the meeting you will talk about the same thing for 25 times. That is extra processing. It is a non-value added activity that doesn't help advance the mission or your goal, and it's not helping you get to your end product. So all of those things, downtime, we'll flash it here up on the screen, downtime and the acronym, that is ultimately the devil, and it is a waste producer. Defects, overproduction, waiting, non utilized talent, transportation, inventory, mistakes, and extra processing is all waste. And it's something that we can't afford, particularly in our industry. We can't afford because we are bound by a lot of time constraints, a lot of variables when it comes to pricing, etc. And we monitor and analyze our downtime on every single project. And if your builder is not doing it, it may be because they haven't nailed down the difference.